What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got our Week 14 fantasy football running back starts and sits for every single matchup, so make sure to tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? We will do our best to answer them all. But with that being said, let's get right into it. Today's video is brought to you guys by Birddogs. And look, I know we're all searching for that perfect pair of shorts or pants that offers the best style, the best comfort, the best bang for your buck. Well, guess what? That search is over because Birddogs offers all of that and so much more. If you're looking for shorts, they have a ton of options with activewear, casual wear, or even beach wear. On top of that, their pants have a selection of khakis, joggers, and sweatpants. So what are you waiting for? Regardless of the occasion of the season, get yourself the most stylish, the most comfortable pair of pants with a built-in liner from Birddogs.com. And if you use promo code ADP today, you'll get a free rope hat with your purchase. Again, that's Birddogs.com, code ADP, and you'll get a free rope hat with your purchase. Make sure to check out birddogs.com, link in the description. And we kick off week 14 on Thursday with the Raiders at the Rams. So there's a much preferred side here in terms of general fantasy starts, and it's by far and away the Raiders side. We begin with Josh Jacobs, who followed up his 300-yard total performance with a pretty solid outing in week 13 as well. And this matchup versus a completely banged up Rams team, offensively, defensively, should be another decent opportunity for Josh Jacobs. He is in the RB1 category. Then for the Rams, it might seem crazy, but we have listed Cam Akers as a start. Go figure. All it took for the Rams to finally give Akers an opportunity was for everyone on that offense, on that team to be injured and to be unavailable, and then they finally just said, well, screw it, we're just gonna use Cam Akers, it doesn't matter, and it's led to some success these last couple of weeks. The Raiders defense isn't all that scary, and if Akers continues to get, between, let's say, 13, 14, 15 carries plus a game, he has okayish upside. I would put him in the low-end running back 2 category. But again, he's a guy that, especially with some teams on bye and with some injuries, and considering the matchup, you could do worse. However, I wouldn't get too cute here. Kyren Williams, backup for the Rams, is still a sit. If Akers is already enough of a risk, don't further that exposure with Kyren Williams. He is a sit for us. Then Vikings at the Lions. Dalvin Cook is the easy start. I think he's going to have a decent performance here versus this Lions defense. He had a pretty good outing this last week, and he should be able to follow it up with some success, all things considered. I have him as a high-end running back too. For the Lions, it's finally happening, ? Jamal Williams yet again got a rushing touchdown from the 1-yard line, but what we finally saw was DeAndre Swift got more usage than Jamal Williams in the rushing department. Now, how much of that was because the Lions were blowing out the Jaguars, or because, it was a good opportunity for Swift to get that usage because that's what he's going to see moving forward? It's kind of TBD, but I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair. And we saw Swift being utilized kind of like he was at the beginning of the year. He was a good pass catcher. And if things continue to play out this way, you are getting DeAndre Swift that you drafted back here in the nick of time for a playoff run. So that would be extremely, extremely fortunate. The way I have this right now, this could also be the last kind of week where we see Jamal Williams fantasy viable. I have Jamal Williams as a low-end running back 2 and DeAndre Swift as a mid-level running back 2. And this will be a good test to see if what we saw versus the Jaguars was a fluke or if it was a sign for things to come. Then Ravens at the Steelers. Only one running back you should be interested in here. That is Najee Harris. Again, the Steelers have their own fair share of issues, but the Ravens right now, it's trending that Lamar Jackson is not going to play. And that completely changes this entire offense, this entire team. That's why I'm not touching anybody on this Ravens backfield at all. I don't care if J.K. Dobbins returns. I don't care if he's not there and it's just Gus Edwards. Regardless, the Ravens, even without Lamar Jackson, still are going to have a run-first type of quarterback. It's going to take away from the other rushers. There's no just one alpha guy at the running back position. You sit all of them. And then Najee Harris, to me, I think is a solid mid-level running back 2 here. Afterwards, Browns at the Bengals. I can only trust Nick Chubb right now on this Browns offense. Look, last week versus the Houston Texans, it was obviously the return of Deshaun Watson, but he looked bad to say the least. I mean, he looked like a guy that hadn't played football in 2 years. But I thought maybe versus the Houston Texans, if there was any team that would give him a pass and then he'd have favorable matchups, it would be versus them, but not necessarily the case. And maybe the Browns didn't make him do all that much considering how much success they had defensively and knowing that they can run the ball. And which just takes me back to the fact that I think Nick Chubb is going to remain the dominant piece for this fantasy offense at the running back position. Kareem Hunt, I thought he was going to get a little bit more usage as a pass catcher. That didn't necessarily happen, which has me a little bit worried about him in this game versus the Bengals, where, I could see the Browns having to throw the football and not run it as much. So I'm just worried about the usage of Hunt as a rusher. I'm worried about the game flow for the running back position here, but I'm still going to start Nick Chubb. He's going to get 15 to 20 carries in this game. He is a high-end running back 2 for me here. For the Bengals, Joe Mixon, if he returns, he is a start. If not, Samaje Perine has been very good in his absence. He is a high-end running back 2, low-end running back 1, and if Mixon does return, then naturally you sit Perine. Then we go to the Jets at the Bills. So this is another situation where injuries might factor in. Zonovan Knight was very solid in the absence of Michael Carter. And if Michael Carter misses yet another week, Zonovan Knight, I don't mind rolling him out again. To me, he would be a low to mid-level running back 2. But the problem to me becomes if Michael Carter returns, then I think that the Jets, even though he hasn't looked all that great, are going to still have at least a split backfield, which is going to really hurt Zonovan Knight, which in that scenario, especially versus this Bills defense, I would sit the entire Jets backfield. If Carter doesn't play, then I would take that chance on Knight. And then for the Bills, Devin Singletary, I still think is the preferred option, even though we did see one of those games where James Cook, by all accounts, pretty much outproduced Singletary in terms of rushes, in terms of yards, in terms of pass catching opportunities. Again, this will be a good test to see if that was a fluke or if that's going to be a sign for things to come. Either way, James Cook is providing, very, very high upside running back handcuff opportunities here for Devin Singletary. And if Singletary somehow loses the starting gig in these last couple of weeks, then kudos to you for holding on to Cook. But, I wouldn't force the start here just because we saw one game where James Cook had some success. Again, we've seen that, once before, and it was about 3-4 weeks ago. And then the next 2-3 weeks, James Cook was nowhere to be found. So I'm not forcing the situation with Cook. Afterwards, Texans at the Cowboys. I'll start Dameon Pierce, but you should realize that he is a very boom or bust, honestly, low-end running back too. He could very well go for like 15, 16, 17 carries for like 80 yards. In PPR formats, that's not giving you much. In standard formats, I mean, low-end running back 2, high-end running back 3, especially if he doesn't get a touchdown. This Cowboys defense has been very good. This Texans offense has been very bad. It's probably going to have to be a game similar to what we saw versus the Browns, maybe even worse, where the Texans have to pass a bunch, abandon the run. So that's why I am kind of putting that on notice in terms of the possible bust potential here for Pierce. Then for the Cowboys, I think it's a great play for both Zeke and Tony Pollard. This Texans defense is absolutely god-awful. You should fire both of them up as high-end running back 2s. Then we go to the Eagles at the Giants. Miles Sanders, Saquon Barkley. Pretty simple. Saquon Barkley, to me, I do think is the better running back. But if the game script here goes in favor of the Eagles and they start to blow out the Giants, which is very possible, Saquon Barkley could have a lower floor than desired. I'd put him in the high-end running back 2 category. I'd probably put Miles Sanders in the mid to high-end running back 2 category as well. It really just matters how many touchdowns are vultured by Jalen Hurts, because we know this Eagles offense is very high octane. It just matters where those rushing touchdowns are distributed. But Sanders has definitely been playing very well and deserves a start this week. Then we go to the Jaguars at the Titans. I'll start Travis Etienne. Yes, he has cooled down a little bit since that James Robinson trade, but he's still the top rusher for the Jaguars. And as long as, this game is close and Trevor Lawrence plays, then I think Etienne is a solid high-end running back 2 start. And then I anticipate that Derrick Henry will bounce back this week. I mean, the Jaguars are not in the realm of the Philadelphia Eagles. They're not going to go up like 30 to 10 on the Titans. So I think Derrick Henry is a top 5 running back, especially in standard formats, and bounces back this week. Then we go to the Chiefs at the Broncos. I'm only interested in Isaiah Pacheco. And, maybe some people are going to force a Jerick McKinnon start since he did get a touchdown this last week, and it's the Broncos. But I do think the Broncos defense is still somewhat okay, and the Chiefs aren't fully, rushing the football as much as we would like other teams with 2 potential running back starts. That's why McKinnon to me is a sit. I think Pacheco is kind of that mid-level running back 2 range. And then for the Broncos, this is a horrible matchup for them. I mean, sure, they almost won this last week, but they still only put up 9 points, and that was versus the Lamar Jackson-less, Baltimore Ravens. Now they go up against Patrick Mahomes, and Latavius Murray is going to be in a situation where the Broncos are going to be playing from behind. They might be down like 20 points. Murray is going to be phased out of this game. I mean, sure, he had 15 carries, but it was for 50 yards. That's not good efficiency to me. He is a sit here. Then Panthers at the Seahawks. Deonta Foreman, I think, can be an okay start. I have him as a low to mid-level running back 2. The Seahawks defense is kind of up and down, and I do think the Panthers offense, I said it before, with Sam Darnold, has the highest offensive upside out of any of the quarterbacks on this team. So that's kind of how I view Foreman. For the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker got injured last week. Unfortunate. We will know more about the severity of the injury as the week progresses, but if he plays, I will start Kenneth Walker, but you should definitely be prepared for the scenario where he is not available. In that situation, I think a lot of people are going to be forcing maybe a DJ Dallas or a Tony Jones, but I'm a little bit worried that it's going to turn into a running back by committee. Nobody's going to get 10 plus carries. They're going to kind of, switch out guys that they use in the red zone. So to me, unless Kenneth Walker plays, I'm avoiding the Seattle backfield. And then Chuba Hubbard, to me, I think is just the backup at this point in Carolina. So to me, he is a sit here. Then we go to the Bucs at the 49ers. Now, at the time of this recording, the Bucs still haven't played, so we don't really know how that shakeout has turned out in terms of White versus Leonard Fournette, but everything we've seen as of late, White has looked like the better guy. Now, unless, in the end of week 13, Rachaad White only sees like 1 or 2 carries and Leonard Fournette sees like 20, then okay, we can have a different conversation. But right now, I'd go with Rachaad White. Either way, though, considering the matchup for the 49ers defensively, I think whoever you go with is a low-end running back 2. The one thing that I will say without Jimmy Garoppolo, yet another injury for the 49ers, a cornerback down to their 3rd-string quarterback. We'll see if they add anyone, make any moves, something like that. That could affect the offense, could affect the defense as well. So maybe a little bit of a boost to the rushers for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I don't think by much. Then for the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey, he's a start. You're going to play him. But again, I do think you're going to see a fallout, especially versus some tougher defensive teams with McCaffrey and the 49ers offense, but you continue to start him. He is an RB1, especially without Elijah Mitchell. I'm not worried about Jordan Mason. He's had 5, 6, 7 carries. That's not all that much, especially versus this Buccaneers defense. He's nothing more than kind of a handcuff at this point for McCaffrey, so he is a sit, and so is Leonard Fournette. Then Dolphins at the Chargers. I'll start Jeff Wilson, and I realized that for the Dolphins, Wilson only saw 1 carry. Raheem Mostert saw 7 versus the 49ers, so that's a little bit concerning, but I do think Wilson is still the preferred option. It was a bad game flow type of game for the rushing attack, the Dolphins versus the 49ers. This Chargers defense isn't as good. They're more susceptible to opposing running backs, and, this will be a good test to see where these two rushers stand in terms of how they will be utilized and the amount of carries they will get. At this point in time, I'll still give Jeff Wilson the benefit of the doubt, but I have him listed a little bit more modestly as a low to mid-level running back 2. And then for the Chargers, Austin Eckler is still a running back 1 for me. Kind of had his first downish week for the first time in a while. But I think he bounces back here versus this pretty bad Dolphins defense. And then Raheem Mostert is a sit for me. I think he's the number 2 for the Dolphins at this point in time. Moving on, Patriots at the Cardinals. I'm starting Ramondre Stevenson. I don't care if Damian Harris is healthy. I don't care if he's active. Regardless of the situation, Stevenson has looked like the better running back pretty much all season long. He's getting great usage as a pass catcher. Damian Harris, honestly, at this point in time, unless there's an injury to Stevenson, is a permanent sit. Stevenson is in the RB1 category. For the Cardinals, James Conner. The Cardinals coming off the bye week. James Conner has been getting some good usage. Patriots defense, we'll see, could put up a little bit of a fight, but I think James Conner is a decent mid-level running back too, depending on how this game goes for the Cardinals out the gate. But with that, we wrap up our Week 14 fantasy football running back starts and sits for every single matchup. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comment section. Did you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? We'll do our best to answer them all. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.